a respected pastor, a devoted wife, and a lost young woman. When love, betrayal, and jealousy cross the line, what will happen? This is not just an affair, it is a horrifying tragedy that shakes the entire town of Montgomery Falls. Montgomery Falls, a quiet little town deep in the heart of America, where everyone knows each other and the church is the center of the community. The red dirt roads lead to small houses shaded by ancient oak trees. Every Sunday morning, the bells of the Baptist church ring out, calling people to gather, to pray, and to seek peace in their faith. Pastor Devon Green is the leader of the community. At 34, he is widely respected for his dedication to his congregation, always wearing a gentle smile and ready to help those in need. His wife, Jada Green, is a caring woman devoted to her family. She teaches Sunday school and raises their 2 young children with love. They seem to have the perfect marriage, a model family that everyone admires. But behind the peaceful facade, Devon is growing weary of his repetitive life. The work of a pastor is stressful, his marriage lacks excitement, and he begins to sink into a feeling of emptiness. Everything changes when Macy Brooks arrives. A 22-year-old woman with sorrowful eyes walks into the church one Sunday morning, sitting quietly in the back row. Macy has no family, having grown up in an orphanage, and is searching for a fresh start in this town. When Devon greets her, she whispers, "I'm lost, Pastor." He doesn't know that from that moment on, his life will take a completely different turn, a path leading to an irreversible tragedy. If you enjoy true crime stories with an objective and insightful perspective, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next shocking case. Leave a comment and share your thoughts on today's story. Every Sunday morning, Devon stood at the pulpit, preaching about faith and devotion, while Jada led the Sunday school class for children, guiding them in singing hymns and learning Bible stories. The two were always together, along with their 2 young children, creating the image of a perfect family in the eyes of the congregation. But behind that facade, Devon was experiencing an internal crisis. As a pastor, he was expected to be strong, to always have answers for others' problems. Yet he felt empty. His life was confined to responsibilities, preaching, visiting church members, counseling others in their marriages. Everything had become repetitive. Jada was still a good wife, but she was too busy with the children and church activities to notice the growing distance between them. Devon started to feel like he was merely fulfilling his duties rather than living his passion. That was why, when Macy Brooks appeared, he felt something different. Macy was a 22-year-old woman, a stranger in town. When she first walked into the church, she sat in the back row, her head lowered, as if she didn't want to be noticed. When Devon greeted her after the service, she whispered, "I feel lost." Those words touched something deep within Devon. He felt the same way, but had never dared to admit it. Macy had a painful past. She lost her mother at a young age, her father was in prison, and she grew up in the foster care system, deprived of love. Her life had been a series of restless wanderings, with no place that ever truly felt like home. Montgomery Falls was where she hoped to start over, but loneliness still haunted her. Devon and Macy's relationship began as a pastor's concern for a troubled church member. Devon wanted to help her, introduce her to the community, and find her a stable job. But gradually their conversations drifted beyond religion or Macy's struggles. Devon found himself wanting to see her, to listen to her. At first, Jada suspected nothing. She trusted her husband. It was completely normal for Devon to help a church member. But over time, she began to notice subtle changes in him, how he came home later, how he sat in silence as if lost in thought. The community started to notice as well. In a small town like Montgomery Falls, nothing went unnoticed for long. Some people began whispering when Macy appeared around Devon too often. Rumors crept into church gatherings. Devon often avoided her gaze, lost in his own thoughts. At first, Jada tried to dismiss her unease, but a wife's intuition told her that something wasn't right. Then one day, while reviewing photos from a church event, she noticed something that made her heart tighten. In most of the pictures, Devon and Macy were standing close together, their eyes meeting with a meaning that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the concern of a pastor for a struggling church member. It was the intimacy of two people hiding something. Jada decided to look closer. She noticed Devon disappearing at odd times, deleting messages quickly. She didn't confront him right away. She wanted undeniable proof. At the same time, Devon was torn between reason and desire. He knew he was walking a dangerous path, knew that if he let things go too far, he could lose everything. But every time he saw Macy, he felt himself being pulled into another world. One where he was no longer Pastor Green, but just a man craving something new. Then came the fateful evening. Devon and Macy met in a small room at the back of the church, preparing for a charity event. It was just the two of them, the lights dim and the atmosphere too intimate. Macy lowered her head, her voice hesitant. "Devon, I've never felt safe with anyone the way I do with you." Devon couldn't find the words to respond. He knew he shouldn't cross the line, but when Macy looked up, her eyes filled with longing and vulnerability, he felt powerless to resist. In that moment, the boundaries blurred. Devon leaned in, and in a fleeting lapse of judgment, they crossed the line they had both sworn to keep. They didn't know that Jada had begun watching, and what she was about to uncover would change everything forever. Jada no longer had any doubts. She needed proof. She watched Devon's every move, silently checked his phone while he slept, and then she saw it, a message from Macy. A single short line, but enough to make her heart clench. "I don't want to hide anymore. You have to choose." Jada's heart shattered. This wasn't just a suspicion or a rumor anymore. Devon had betrayed her, betrayed his vows to God, betrayed the family she had spent her life building. But the shock didn't stop there. As she continued reading the messages, Jada discovered something even more devastating. Macy was pregnant. She could no longer stay calm. It felt as if she had lost everything. The rest of the day passed in silence, her eyes cold as she watched Devon. When night fell, she waited for him to come home. But this time, Devon was later than usual. When he finally walked through the door, he found Jada sitting there, his phone in her hand, her eyes piercingly cold. "Do you have something you want to tell me?" Jada's voice was low but sharp as a knife. Devon froze but tried to keep his composure. "Jada, I don't know what you're talking about." Jada threw the phone onto the table, its screen still glowing with Macy's message. She stood up, stepping closer. "You betrayed me, and her? She's carrying your child." Devon couldn't deny it. He lowered his head, knowing he had been exposed. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything. Jada just stood there, silent tears streaming down her face. She had once trusted him more than anyone, but now everything had crumbled. The marriage she had cherished was nothing but a lie. Anger, pain, betrayal. They swirled together, forming a storm inside Jada, one that was only just beginning. After the truth was exposed, Jada spiraled into despair. She couldn't believe that her beloved husband, the father of her two children, had betrayed her in the most painful way. Not only had there been another woman, but the child growing inside Macy was living proof of that betrayal. Devon tried to explain, but every word now felt meaningless. "Jada, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't think it would go this far." But to Jada, nothing could be salvaged. The trust was broken, her dignity trampled. At first she tried to stay calm, but the anger inside her grew stronger with each passing day. Deep down she wanted to hold on to her family, but every time she imagined her husband with Macy, she felt like she was suffocating. Then one day she received a message from a friend in town. "I just saw Devon's car parked outside Macy's house. Are you okay?" That was the final straw. Jada lost all reason. She could only see one thing. Macy had stolen her husband, destroyed her family, and was now carrying Devon's child. Without hesitation, Jada drove straight to Macy's house, a small home on the edge of town. When she arrived, she saw Devon's car parked out front. The lights inside were dim. Her heart pounded. One thought consumed her. If she couldn't have Devon back, then Macy wouldn't have him either. Jada opened the trunk and pulled out a gasoline can, one she had kept for the generator. Quietly, she walked onto the porch and poured the gasoline along the door and entryway. The fumes were strong, but she didn't care. Tears streamed down her face, but her fury had taken control. Inside, Devon and Macy had no idea about the tragedy about to unfold. Macy, her belly starting to show, looked at Devon with hopeful eyes. "Have you decided yet? Can we go somewhere? Start over?" Devon didn't answer. He knew he had made a terrible mistake, but could he really abandon his family? Then suddenly the sound of flames crackling outside. Macy smelled the smoke first. Her eyes widened in terror. "Devon, there's a fire!" He ran to the door, but the flames had already consumed the porch. The wooden door was catching fire, and smoke filled the room rapidly. Outside, Jada stood watching the blaze, her eyes empty. She had gone too far, but there was no turning back. Inside, Macy clutched her belly, coughing violently as smoke filled her lungs. Devon tried to break down the door, but the fire spread too quickly. Jealousy had turned into tragedy, and there was no undoing it now. The fire roared, engulfing the small house in an instant. Inside, Macy panicked. She clutched her stomach, coughing violently as thick black smoke filled every corner. "Devon, I can't breathe!" She stumbled, searching for a way out, but every door was swallowed by flames. Devon frantically pounded on the window, but the wood was already ablaze. He turned toward the back door, hoping to escape, but before he could move, Jada emerged from the shadows, gripping a large knife. Her eyes burned with fury, her hair disheveled, her breath ragged. "You betrayed me, Devon. You betrayed our family." Her voice was hoarse, but her eyes blazed with madness. Macy took a step back, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just loved him." But to Jada, words meant nothing anymore. In a moment of blind rage, she lunged at Macy, the knife flashing through the firelit air. Devon screamed, reaching out to stop her, but it all happened too fast. The blade plunged deep into Macy's stomach. She let out a piercing cry, collapsing onto the floor, her hands desperately clutching her abdomen, as if trying to shield the unborn child inside her. Blood spread across her dress, mixing with the fiery orange glow of the flames. Devon, horrified, wrenched the knife from Jada's grasp, but it was too late. Macy's breath grew shallow. At that moment, the ceiling began to give way. A burning wooden beam crashed down, striking Jada and sending her sprawling to the ground. Devon lunged forward, but the flames had already cut him off from her. The small house had become an inferno with no escape. Macy's tear-filled eyes met Devon's one last time. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Take care of her." But the words faded as her chest rose and fell for the final time. Devon felt his world collapse. He turned to Jada, but she was already sinking beneath the burning wreckage, the flames consuming her. Heat seared his skin as he tried to reach for her, but the collapsing roof forced him back. With no other choice, Devon did the only thing he could. He smashed through the back window and leapt out. He hit the ground hard, rolling through the dirt in agony. His body burned and broken, but he had survived. As he turned back, the house was fully engulfed, the sounds of timber crashing down echoing in the night. Jada and Macy would never make it out. In the distance, the wail of fire sirens filled the air. Townspeople rushed to the scene, watching in horror as the flames devoured everything. Devon fell to his knees, burying his face in his hands, realizing that in a single night he had lost everything, his wife, his lover, and his unborn child. And worst of all, it had all started with his mistake. When the fire was finally extinguished, firefighters and police silently sifted through the smoldering wreckage. They found 2 charred bodies in the ruins. One was Jada, the other was Macy, a young woman who had been carrying a child. Neither had made it out. The tragedy of Devon, Jada, and Macy was not just a story of betrayal or jealousy. It was a grim warning about the irreversible consequences of poor decisions. Devon had failed to confront his emotions. His hesitation, avoidance, and lack of responsibility had allowed everything to spiral out of control. If he had been honest with himself and his family from the start, perhaps none of this would have ended in flames. In marriage, or in any relationship, honesty is the most important foundation. A single lie can set off a chain of consequences beyond one's control. If Devon had faced his problems earlier, or if Jada had chosen a different path instead of violence, perhaps there would have been a chance for redemption. Jada was deeply hurt, but instead of seeking a way to heal, she chose to destroy everything. In moments of rage, people often make reckless decisions, and sometimes, a single moment of lost control can ruin an entire life. Of all the victims in this tragedy, Devon and Jada's children suffered the most. They not only lost their mother, but would have to live with the haunting shadow of their family's destruction for the rest of their lives. Every action taken by an adult leaves a lasting impact on their children, a sobering lesson that should never be forgotten. Think carefully before you act, because some mistakes can never be undone.